Good evening. Welcome to Fate Mag Radio. I am so glad that you are here. We are going to have a great time tonight. Before we get started, most of y'all know that I am a coastal girl, okay? And I am really concerned and praying for all of the people that are in the path of Ida. I think that this hurricane is probably realistically worse than Katrina. I don't have the effect over in my little town so far that we got from Katrina. Katrina actually cut a new pass through our coastline to our lagoon. That was exciting, and devastated Dolphin Island. But she's a bad old girl. This one's a bad old girl in her own right. She is inland, miles and miles inland, and she is still a 3. So for those of y'all, including some of my very dear friends in New Orleans who did not evacuate, some could not, some did not, just know that we are keeping you in our prayers and concern. And, you know, I love y'all more than my luggage. So just make sure that you are doing your thing, keeping yourself safe. And I want to also lift up all of our service members and prayers for wisdom for the people that are making the decisions affecting them. So, and that's all I have to say about that. Because I can't even tell you, I am so excited because this guest is someone that I met in Phoenix. She is who shared my spoon bending experience that we were discussing on another show not too long ago. And it's the only thing about all the things I do that flips the hubster out. It's so funny. But Debra is just fantastic. She actually is Debra Jordan-Kauble, and she is the subject of Budd Hopkins' book and the miniseries adapted from this of Intruders Incredible Visitations at Copley Woods. She has also written a new release of her own, she has others, that is Extraordinary Contact, Life Beyond Intruders. And there have been so many things that have affected her life and things that she has survived and experienced throughout her life. And we're going to find out about some of that, but mainly, hi, Debbie.
Hi, Kat.
I'm so glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this.
We've
had some fun conversations on the phone.
Well, we have, and I decided that since we did those, without a show being involved, why don't I just, because I was seeing you, promoting your book and stuff, and I'm like, well, why don't I just say, come on with me, come play.
Okay.
So it worked out.
Yeah, it did.
But, I am just really taken with you. I think that you are one of the nicest people I've met in your field. And that's saying something. There's a lot of nice people that work with ufology from every angle. But, your experiences, while they still affect your life today, didn't defeat you.
No.
And that's hard. They were difficult things, I know, to get past, but you were very diligent in seeking help and accepting help.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I'm a survivor.
Yes, I like that. I am too. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of people are when they find their back against the wall that didn't expect to be.
Yeah.
So, kudos to all the survivors out there.
Yes.
And now, I'm curious because I know that you had experiences before what actually ruined your dad's yard.
Yeah.
So, I know that I'm going to ask you, this is about you. Where would you like to begin? Because we can go any direction, but I'll give you that option.
Let me think. There's so much.
Or I could just take off. I mean,
there's, I'm 62 years old and I've had a life full of weird stuff. So it's kind of hard to pick something, I mean, I can go back to when I was just a kid and, well, let's see. I probably was 6 years old. It was the mid 60s. And, I was, really attached to my older sister. And she, after she got her driver's license, there was a decision that she would be taking a little weekend trip up to Detroit to visit a friend of hers. Now, this friend lived up there, but her grandparents were our neighbors. And so she would come down in the summertime and play and stay with her grandparents, and she hung out with my sister. And she had a younger sister as well that was about my age, and I would play with her once in a while.
Right.
And so when Kathie was allowed to drive, and my parents let her and take me up to Detroit to see Eileen and her friend Denise. And so we went up there. I remember being so super excited about it because I loved my sister so much. And I got to carry one of those little round travel bags.
Oh.
Remember from the 60s with the little loop handle? Yeah. Yes. I was so excited. I felt like such a grown up. And it's funny how things like that stick with you. But so we went up there, and I remember what we had for lunch that day. The woman made us grilled cheese sandwiches, and then I remember us outside playing in the backyard, and a ball was kicked over the fence, and I jumped the fence to get the ball, because I was a tomboy like that. And right. As soon as I reached the ball, I went to get back in the yard, and I felt like all of a sudden I didn't know where I was, and I was lost, and I felt panicky. And I remembered walking around to the front of the house, and I remember the house was on like a cul-de-sac. So there's like a curved sidewalk, and I thought that this was the house I was supposed to be at.
Right.
But I was feeling all kinds of confused, and the door was open. So I walked in this house, and some things looked kind of familiar to me. But again, I started to feel scared and started to run out the door. But as I went to run out the door, I was blocked by a little boy. And he was about my height, so I assumed he was my age. He was little. And he looked human. He had blonde hair and brown eyes. Then he asked me to stay and play with him. And he said he had a lot of fun toys that I want to play. And I'm like, okay. My panic disappeared. And I followed him to this toy room. And in the toy room, I don't know where I was, because it definitely wasn't a room in a house. It was all white and lit up, which is something I would remember again later in life.
Yes.
This large, spacious room with, illuminated but no visible lamps or lighting, and like a sunken living room part in the middle that I sat down on, and he handed me something that I assumed was a toy, that it was like about shoebox size with like strings across of it and a hole in the top. And I thought I was supposed to pluck it, like you play, a little toy banjo or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember plucking on that, and then my leg hurt, and I got scared because something hurt my leg, and I jumped up and I tried to leave the room. There's a lot of stuff in between I don't clearly recall, but
right.
I ended up back at the front door about to go outside, and he was asking me to don't go play with him some more. And this woman comes out from another room, and I assume it was his mother, and she was big and mean looking.
Oh.
And she was mad that I was there, and she said something to the effect of, "What is she doing here? She doesn't belong here. She needs to leave right now." And then bam, it was like someone pushed me out the door, although I don't recall seeing anyone touch me. And as I kind of stumbled and got my footing, and I looked up, and at the end of the walk path, on the sidewalk in front of the house is my older sister. And I remember feeling relief.
No doubt. I would have been.
You know, I don't remember anything except I remember feeling relieved that I saw that was my sister. And I remember taking her hand, and I don't recall her saying anything to me at all. As a matter of fact, my next memory is of going, we'll go home and that's the end of the trip. And I never thought about it again until years later when Budd came and was talking to my family, during one of his visits, and was, he would sit down at the kitchen table and we'd have coffee and we would just talk, and he asked about something, about my childhood. And I think it might have been my mom that initially said, "Remember when you were missing? Do you remember that?" And I'm like, wait a minute, And then I started to remember bits of it. I remembered the trip.
Right.
And I remembered, and then Mom and Kathie talked to Budd about what they remembered, which I can't recall right now what they said to him, but I do know that Kathie was able to contact the gal, the friend of hers, and her mother was still alive. And Budd, I remember sitting at the kitchen table, and Budd talked to this woman on the phone.
Right.
And the woman confirmed that not only that Kathie and I were there, and the time frame, but that I had been missing for almost the entire day, and lots of people had been looking for me, including the law enforcement. And my sister was the one who went out and found me and brought me back. And that's, she didn't say anything about where I might have been or what might have happened to me. They were just all happy that I was there and I was safe and sound. And, I don't remember anything else about that day. I don't remember anything else about what Kathie and Mom might have told Budd. But, I mean, that's definitely a weird thing.
It is a weird thing. But your life has been just one weird incident after the other.
Yeah, I have spells. I take spells.
You take spells on weirdness is what you do.
That's right. It might be, I might go years without having anything weird happen now at this point in my life. It seemed like it was more active when I was younger. And after the June 30, 1983, for about a year or maybe a couple of years after that, it was very active. Not just UFO stuff, but mostly, I think, really paranormal things. You see, I'd grown up in a family that was really open-minded, and, we weren't, my mom was a Pentecostal, one of those don't cut your hair, go to church 3 times a week. That's how she was raised by the people that adopted her. And then my dad was a Catholic altar boy. So when they got married, she was 16 and he was 19, and neither one of them went back to church. So I got the basics of spiritual, training, the Christianity, and that's it. And, but yet, my mom, she always said, she would say, what do I look like? Jean Dixon? If you remember, Jean Dixon was like before the Sylvia Brown, there was Jean Dixon, right?
There was, and my grandmother read her religiously.
And my mother my mom read her stuff, and she also read Sylvia Brown. I mean, she was interested in things like that, not necessarily UFO stuff, and we'd have little ghostly, things happen around the house. Stuff would disappear and then reappear in weird places.
That's aggravating.
It is aggravating.
That is so aggravating.
You'd see someone in the corner of your eye move around and look, and no one was there. And then, I tell this in my book, one of the paranormal stories. Mom, Kathie, and I were all sitting around the kitchen table one day having a cup of coffee and smoking a cigarette. We all smoked back then, and Mom had one of these great big amber glass ashtrays. And I reached over to flip my ash in it, and just as I flipped my finger down on my cigarette, that ashtray snapped in half. And it was loud. And you know how thick and heavy that glass is.
Yes, I do.
It was a loud crack, and it startled all of us. And we're looking there.
Oh my goodness.
it was a perfect split down the middle, and one half of that ashtray literally slid to the edge of the table in front of my sister, and the other half slid to the other edge of the table and stopped before it went off the table. And my mom, her first reaction was, what the hell? That ashtray was expensive. Now, and my older sister, she was like, I'm out of here. And she grabs her purse and she takes off, it freaks her out. And then I'm like, cool, did I do that? It didn't scare me at all. It was like I was so conditioned at that point, because when I was a little kid and weird stuff happened, I just assumed it happened to everyone. Yes. I thought that's what happened when
Yes.
I thought that was life. And then I didn't realize it doesn't, or at least people don't talk about it. Once I got in school and started talking about it, kids are mean and they will shut you up quick. So I'm like, okay, no, never mind.
I'm done with this right here.
Yeah.
Well, we have to take a break. I can't believe we're already 20 minutes into this show. I am having so much fun.
I told you, I'm a yapper.
Well, we do that. So we yap together. I like it. But we'll be right back after this. Y'all come back too. And if you have questions, just pop them in chat. We'll get to them. We'll see you on the flip side.
What we have here at WBHM Digital Broadcasting is the best host, the best guest, bringing you real information. All of the hosts here on this network know their stuff. They are the people who have been out there doing the work, doing actual research. And no, by research, I don't mean binge watching some kind of cheesy TV show on Netflix. I mean reading books. I mean out in the field doing the legwork. And who are they interviewing on their shows? They're bringing you the people they have learned from. They're bringing you the best in the field, covering all kinds of topics from UFOs and aliens to Bigfoot to cryptozoology to ghosts to anything you can think of, a bit strange and unexplained. It is here, and you're going to get the best information here. So stay tuned to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Don't go anywhere. Speaking of going somewhere, I've got to go before my mic gets cut. We'll see you there on WBHM-DB.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. I am so glad that you are here because this is a great show already and we are just getting into the second segment. I am very fortunate. I have got a fantastic guest and it is Debra Jordan-Kauble, and she is a abduction experiencer, a lifelong paranormal, and various alien encounters. She is the subject of Budd Hopkins' book and the miniseries that was adapted from that, Intruders, The Incredible Visitations at Copley Woods. And at some point, we need to tell people all about that so that they will know, if they don't, if they've been under a rock, what you experienced that you went forward with on that, because it was a little, but it was tied into your other experiences too. So, you know, I told you this show is about you, and I think people would love to hear that, but whatever you want to do.
I'm sitting here trying to think of stuff. There's a lot of stuff in the book, and it's all kind of compacted in there, but there's
there's a lot of stuff outside the book too. So
there's like when I was a student in beauty school, our beauty school was attached to a mall. And so on breaks, we could go to the mall and get something to eat or get a drink or something, and either take it back to school or sit in there and eat at the food court. You know what I mean? And I went to the mall one day to get something to drink, and I think I was just sitting there, just kind of people watching and killing some time. And this man came up to me as an older guy, and he started asking me, you know how in the malls they have those, I guess they call them kiosks with the television screens?
Yes.
That will flash, you know, and change like advertisements and stuff. Well, he asked me what that was. And I tried to explain it to him. You know, it's a television like, and, you know, it's advertisements, you know, he seemed very interested in it, and he was interested in how it worked, which, you know, I couldn't really help him much there. But then he said to me out of the blue before he left, he said, I want you to have this. And he hands me this ring. And, yeah, it's a sterling silver ring, and it has turquoise, like red and green turquoise in it. And it's a phoenix, a bird, phoenix bird. And it's a big ring. And I said, well, that's really nice, but I can't take that for you. And he's like, no, I want you to have it. You take that. So I took, you know, I took it. And I actually, when I left, I'm like, I got to get back to work. This old guy, he was just really sweet, but I just got a weird feeling from him. Yes. And I literally did take a picture of the ring, and I have not been able to find it for years and years and years. And I found it the other day.
Oh, how cool.
I found the picture because I had taken a picture of it because I thought that was just too weird. And a couple of days later, that ring disappeared, as have I had other jewelry disappear, you know.
Yes. And
I never have found it. I never found the ring. It was in my room in the basement, and then it was suddenly gone one morning when I woke up, and I never found it again, but I do have a picture of it.
That is so wild.
Yeah. And then I have a piece of Moldavite that I've worn for years, for 20 some years. And I don't know if you know what Moldavite is. It's
I do.
Yeah.
But
I don't know.
listeners may not.
Okay. Well, it's like a part of, it's a piece of a meteor, or it's created by a meteor or something. This is from, I can't remember the name of the country where it comes from. But anyway, it's really cool. And this is a natural piece. But when you hold it up to the light, it's kind of a real dark, seaweedy green color, but it's translucent. You can see through it, you know, and it has little Mars and bubbles and stuff in it. And then it's hand wrapped in this silver that looks like lightning bolts. Well, how I got this was weird. I was actually, I had been at a MUFON meeting, I think, down in St. Louis. And then they were, or some kind of a group meeting. And then we were in a restaurant. And this lady came up to me in this restaurant, and she said, I believe this belongs to you. And I said, it doesn't, but it's beautiful. Thank you. But it's beautiful, but it's not mine. I'm sorry. And she's like, no, I made it for you. And I said, no, really? She's like, yes, I want you to have this. I made this for you. I don't even think this lady was in our group at the table. I don't know where she came from. And I'm like, are you sure?
So she was just a passerby, not a vendor?
No, she wasn't selling any. No, we were in a restaurant, like a Denny's or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were just sitting in a restaurant. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, we were just sitting in a restaurant. And it was just a small group that got together. And I guess they like got a private area in like a Denny's or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she came up, sometime during the course of when everybody's just kind of sitting around talking after they ate and everything. And she came up to me with this. And so I and at the time it was, it had a leather strap around the neck instead of a chain, mm-hmm. and a little clasp. And I put it on, and I was a lot heavier than I am now. And I used to have a lot of trouble with necklaces being too short because I have big shoulders and a big old head and a short neck. So, but it fit me. It fit my neck, which I was stunned by. And I wore it until the leather rotted and broke, and now I have it on a chain, and I continue to wear it. It's like a part of me now. I feel naked when I have to take it off for surgery or something. Right. But, why did she make that for me? And who was she? I don't even know who she was. And as far as I know, I've never seen her again. That's the kind of stuff that happens to me.
Well, that's a wonderful thing, though.
I'm grateful for these things and the things that these folks do, but I don't know why. And this was, Intruders was out at that point, I believe, but it hadn't been out that long. This was in like the late 90s, I think. So
the book was out, but the miniseries hadn't.
When was the miniseries done? I don't remember.
For some reason, I want to say 93. Let me look at my notes. It may not be that old. I mean, it may have been past that point. Might have not been that soon, is what I was trying to say.
I can't remember the exact timing on this, but I know it was years ago. I've had this thing for at least 20 years. So, but that's kind of amazing, and I'm grateful for things like that. But it's odd. People just don't walk up and do stuff like that to you.
Well, people that do what we do, because I had a similar experience at Contact in the Desert, and Contact in the Desert was when I was very first getting into the experience of ufology, not just the reading and talking. But I met an awful lot of people who taught me a whole lot. I had an opportunity to do a couple of workshops. I did one with Whitley Strieber, and I'm ever so thankful that I did. He's brilliant. But my friend John D'Souza was just starting to become public at that time, and I met Travis and a whole lot of other experiencers. And when I was coming through the vendor area, I just finished listening to Eric and Donican, and I was coming through, and they were closing down. And this woman she had so many crystals that it was like her whole stand was glowing from their energy, right? Mm-hmm. And she says, "You need this." And I was like, "Well, I'm not really shopping now."
Yeah.
But thank you for thinking of me. And she said, "No, you need this here." And it was, what is the name of that? But it was actually a very powerful stone. And I'm thinking, oh, that's a nice rock. And so much more than a rock. Yeah. I'm trying to find the name of it while I'm trying to find the time of Intruders, too. But it was, that's okay, mine's Love Shack, so you may hear that, too. But It is what it is, my friend. But it is. Well, if I didn't have old eyes, I could find that and tell you it. I will find it at some point. But it's beautiful, and it's such a protection stone. And I'm a paranormal investigator, as are you. And I did shungite. It was shungite, which is like an onyx color.
Oh,
but it's
wow. I don't think I've ever heard of that.
It's astounding. And I keep it with me. Like when I travel, I have another one that is an energy stone, but this one is pure protection. And it's a triangle. It's a pyramid, not a triangle.
Oh, yeah.
And I take it with me and I leave it by my bed. And if I'm going into a location, I carry it with me. But it's just amazing.
Well, I do have a lot of... I have a lot of stones now that people have, given me as gifts and stuff, but I've just never had a stranger come up to me and give me something like that.
Well, see,
it's
you're
weird
getting
because
really
even
awesome things.
My plastic surgeon that I had when I lost a bunch of weight and I had to have a bunch of skin taken off my stomach, he doesn't even know. He gave me a piece of a meteor and 2 or 3 other little beautiful stones. I thought he was just showing them to me. And he's like, no, I want you to have these. I'm like, okay. I put it in that slot with, people giving me stones. I literally have stones all around my office now. And I just got a big chunk of that selenite, the stuff that's kind of white and flaky looking. I got a great big chunk of that. And a friend of mine sent me this big black onyx. It looks like the Washington Monument, whatever that shape is. It's tall and skinny and pointy. So I mean, I have become. That's something about me that probably nobody really knows, is that I've become really drawn to stones, and I don't even know what they do or what they mean, but I just pick something that I like the way it looks and I like the way it feels, and music and sounds. I've evolved into really being in tune with the way things vibrate, because I feel that it's really important, so I've been messing around with it's a great big, it's made out of crystal, but it's a bowl and it's huge. Oh. And when I smack it with my little rubber mallet and then slide it around it makes this incredible sound that I immediately, my head goes away. If I have a headache, I feel good,
That's
so I mess around with stuff like that, although I have no idea what any of it means.
Right. It's like sound. I've wanted a sound bowl forever. Mm-hmm. And I think stuff like that, it just kind of comes to you. I don't think that you can just go out and buy just any of them.
Yeah. But, and I've had so many weird experiences with sounds, and there are certain sounds that I recall from experiences I had. Lots of beeping sounds and humming sounds, and then and even lights. I've got all these little lights all over my house, these little small lights. I don't know if there's any connection or not, but, because we've had a lot of balls. We have balls of light that whiz through our house. Usually they're white or blue. But one time we had a green one. And I know the colors mean something, but I don't know what. I am worthless when it comes to, I know the colors indicate something in my subconscious, but I don't really know what. I don't understand it.
Well, when you have the sounds, like the beeping sounds and such, that you relate to past experiences, do those cause you angst, or are you okay with that?
Yeah, they used to cause me extreme anxiety. Because it would come out suddenly. And at first I'd think, oh, I'm having a stroke, or something's wrong with my brain.
Right.
but then I'd quickly realize that, my body wasn't stroking out. And it's usually, I'll hear a beeping sound, like 3 beeps. It's usually just 3. And then something will happen. Like that time the rubber band man came in my room, that's in there. And then a beeping sound started again, and it scared him and he ran off. And there's times when I'll hear, I've had that beeping sound literally wake me up out of a sound sleep. And then I've heard my name. I've heard my name being called several times over the years. And it's always not a voice, but it's like a chorus of voices. It's like a whole bunch of voices together.
Really?
And they say Deborah. They don't say, hey, Deb, they say Deborah, and it blasts through my conscious mind. And if I'm asleep, it'll wake me up. I mean, like wide awake, boink. And
is there any rhyme and reason to when it happens, or?
Sometimes when it happened, something, I think, like one time I remember I was living at my mom's and I was awakened by my name being called. And I could hear something outside the window. And it sounded like a semi parked out on the street by the house in idle. But there was not anything out there. That's not where we didn't live where that would happen.
Right.
And I felt very anxious because I thought something was about to happen. And then I fell asleep. So see what I mean? That doesn't make any sense. So, and when I wake up, I don't remember having anything happen. So I think there's a whole lot of stuff still stuck in my head that I just simply don't remember all of it, but it's in there doing something, in my subconscious and guiding me and sending me places, and to do things. And yeah.
Well, that would be reasonable. I mean, you've had so many interactions over the course of your life that even with regression and therapy and group sessions and things of that nature, that's a lot to clear out totally. And I don't think you ever would, because I think that the watchers, for lack of a better term in your case, I think they do watch after you as opposed to watching you. I think that people who have that connection, even though it's freaky until you understand that it's not a dangerous connection, I think that they do care for you, take care of you.
I think so too. And I've always felt protected in a certain kind of way. I don't, in the beginning, early on in my youth, my contact was much more traumatic and there was more of a physical element to it, and I had a lot of fear and anxiety. And, but as I got older, that the physical contact became more subtle and not as, fear inducing and dramatic. And it started kind of shifting from what I always say, a physical to a metaphysical kind of, thing, where I started having more, lucid dreams,
right?
And just visions and things, and also other things in me were changing, like spoon bending and feeling people's energy, getting more in tune with my environment, and waking up in my mind and realizing that there's a whole bunch of stuff going on all around us all the time, and sensing that. Being able to quiet my mind enough to sense something else, and not, yes. I don't feel paranoid. I don't feel like, oh, somebody's watching me all the time, and I got to wear a tin hat and all this. It's not like that, and it doesn't bother me, and I'm not afraid of it. And I mean, it almost feels like it's part of me.
Well, it is part of you. But we have to take our next break. And when we come back, we have a few questions, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, great.
Okay, so we'll be right back. Y'all come back too.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
What? Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. I'm so glad you're here because I have Deborah Jordan-Kauble, and I am having the best time with her. And we have a bunch of questions, but before we get to them, I have to say happy birthday to April Mueller in chat. I am so happy that you're having a wonderful day and have a big party going on later. And thanks for being here. So, have fun tonight. Let's see. When we start getting to the questions, let's see. I sent one of the questioners to Google, because I wanted to make sure that she knew what about you more. Now, Robert Gorman, have you heard a sound like paper tearing or the riffling of playing cards, he says?
Not right offhand. I don't recall hearing some. Most of mine is electronic sounds.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was just interested because he said that telepathic knockout is an important part of the abduction experience often. So
I have heard sounded like static, like when you change back in the olden days, but when there wasn't a channel on a certain TV, that kind of white noise, staticky. Yes. I could hear things. I hear stuff like that.
Do you ever hear things through it? Like if you were not in the middle of an investigation, but when you hear it at home, do you ever hear things through it?
You mean in my head, or if I actually hear it on a television?
Like in your head.
In my head, I did hear, it started out with a static sound. I was laying in bed and it started out with like a staticky sound, like that white noise. And then I could almost like see white noise, in my vision, even though my eyes were closed. And then I heard voices, but they weren't talking to me. Mm-hmm. I was overhearing something and a conversation, and I couldn't understand the language. Can you hear that thunder?
I did.
I'm sorry. We got a thunderstorm that just rolled in here, so hopefully it'll.
My office is right on an outside wall, so I feel.
So is mine. Yeah,
and it's
sorry.
Just like, it's not going to bother me at all.
Okay.
So, there was a question about pyramid shapes, and
yes.
I have lost it now. So, we were watching Ron says we were watching a show on TV, and a guy was talking about how the pyramid shape brings natural high energy. And do you know or have an opinion about that?
Yes, I do. I was drawing circles and pyramids for the first year or so after the June 30, 83 incident. I was just obsessed with pyramid shapes and circles. And I drew a bunch of them. They felt like they needed to be together. Like the circle and the pyramid needed to be together in the same drawing. So I would draw the pyramid in the circle.
Yes.
And I've seen triangle-shaped craft, with other people down in Lucky Point several times. But there's just something about the pyramid shape that it attracts me. It just, I don't know why it attracts me, but I was really obsessed with it for about a year or two. And then I even bought a crystal pyramid and sent it to that woman, Jean, who, as a high friend gift when we were about to meet, that John Carpenter and Forrest Crawford were bringing us together to do that little experiment they did with us. I felt like she needed to have this pyramid, and I sent it to her, and she got so excited. She said, I've been dreaming about one just like that, and then it showed up in my mail, and it was from you. So, there's something there. I'm not sure why, but definitely.
There definitely is.
Yeah.
And April says, you're talking about a chorus of voices.
Yeah.
And she is an ancient text scholar and a very interesting woman. And she said, isn't that how John the Revelator described God's voice? Like many voices and a trumpet.
That's weird. Yeah.
I don't know if that's how he described it, but she would know.
I don't either. Yeah, I don't know either. But yeah, every time I heard it, it felt like it was extremely important that I wake up and listen, and then I can't remember what anything else that was done.
I know. I hate that when you can't get it back.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Hang on just a second, because my earphones just came unplugged. I love when I talk with my hands. I can't help it. I must have, I blame it on my aunt.
Yeah.
So, I'm back.
This storm is really getting funky, so I hope I don't lose power.
Well, if you do, we will do something different and finish. If you lose power, we will. Well,
I'll call you back on my phone. My phone has a full charge.
And I sent you that number.
Yeah.
So we are good to go. And I wanted to touch base with Sherry's questions, because what she was wanting to know, and she learns a lot of these things through listening here. And I have, bless her heart, I have exposed her to so many things that she probably, it's just like, okay, no, I think that's a little weird. Okay. But she's always my biggest fan when we run into each other. She's one of the sweetest people in the world. But about you, she wanted to know, do you feel you were actually abducted? If so, do you remember anything? She heard the story about the blonde-haired boy in the toy room. Was that part of an abduction, possibly? And I gave her the information to check out on Google. But can you just kind of touch base? And all of those questions are yes.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yes,
So.
I believe so. Now, I have to say that, and I had one experience in 78 when I was a young woman just married, and it actually was, I don't think I went anywhere. I think it was everything happened in the bedroom. It was brief. And then there have been multiple times that I've, awakened in bed, covered with grass. I was clearly outside, but I don't know how I got out there or got back in. And I don't have memories of anything that happened, but I knew something happened. There's a whole lot of stuff going on that I don't recall consciously still, even to this day. And but the times that I do recall actually being in a place that's not anywhere around here, it was clear that I was not that. Well, as they say, we're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. But I don't ever recall actually. Ooh,
Gracious.
That was a big one.
I hope you're not sitting right by a window.
No, I'm not. There's a window in the room, but I'm not right by it. But the wind is my television. My security monitors are looking like the television visuals I'm getting from Louisiana right now, and I'm in Indiana, so that don't make no sense. But anyway, I don't ever recall actually going into a craft or coming out of a craft. I just don't have that conscious memory. So I don't know how I'm getting to these places where I go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I literally don't. Like Travis was lifted up into this craft,
Right.
and has that. I don't remember that. I just remember being in one place and then being in another. Even the night of June 30, 1983, I highly suspect I was I went somewhere because there was too much time that I didn't remember, that I still don't, from, that night.
Right.
But I don't remember, so.
Well, that's not a bad thing.
Well,
Or you would.
my attitude is, after 62 years, if I function quite finely and I still don't remember, then I probably don't need to, and I'm okay if I don't remember it,
I do know. I mean, because if you needed to, you would.
Right.
That's my take on it. But, I am just so fascinated by the things that you have seen and experienced, and we're going to get into some of that in the next hour. Some of the experiences that you share in your book and you shared with Budd, and that are part of it's your history. It is what made you you.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked kind of kiddingly about being survivors, but that's exactly what you are. And you have done really, I think you've done really terrific with the things that you've experienced, because some of them would have brought a lesser woman to her knees. And we're gonna talk about some of that, but not in a negative way, because you don't tend to do that. Which is another reason I'm so impressed with you.
I have, my first priority in my life has always been my two boys, my children. And anytime I felt like I was about ready to lose my stuff, I would think of them. And, their dad and I broke up when they were, 3 months and 14 months old, so I was it for them. And I had to be there, and I had to be present there, because they meant, all I ever wanted in life was to be a mom to begin with. So They were the joy of my life. And those boys, all these years, have kept me fighting and grounded, and maybe that's why I go to see a therapist. Still, I do EMDR therapy for, regular life stuff that gets tossed at me. And thank God my therapist knows about all the other weird stuff. And we've even worked a little bit on some of that. And so I'm just lucky. I'm just so blessed.
Well, you really are, because even when things were at their weirdest, you put people you reached out. I mean, you reached out to Budd, and, you sought assistance with something that you couldn't understand.
Right. And I was fortunate enough to have family around me and friends around me that supported that. I mean, because my mom experienced some weird stuff with me.
Yes.
So, I mean, I know how blessed and fortunate I was because I met thousands of people in the last 38 years, and most people didn't have the kind of support that I had. So and that's another reason I wanted to write and reach out, because I wanted to pay forward and help, like I had been helped. So,
well, you do that. So, kudos.
Well,
We're a little early to go to the break, but if I ask you another question, we're going to go over.
Okay.
So
right.
we are going to.
You know me.
I do. We're going to actually get down to our news break, and hopefully it's going to be just a wonderful thing. And I can't lie. I don't think it's going to be a wonderful thing. But, we still have to know. We have to live in this world even as we may not be a part of it. And that's okay, because we're all in this together. So this will be a news break. We'll be back at the end of it. This is a great time to stretch your legs and maybe fill up your beverage container. And we will see you on the flip side. Y'all come back with us.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Support for this podcast and the following message come from Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Alabama. Workplace fashions have changed over the years, but what matters stays the same: your employees. We've been the healthcare partner Alabamians have counted on for decades. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Alabama. We cover what matters.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Louise Schiavone. Hurricane Ida's heavy rains and strong winds continue to rage across the Gulf Coast. NPR's John Burnett has the latest from New Orleans.
I'm standing on St. Charles Avenue in New Orleans as Hurricane Ida thrashes this city with gusts of 70 miles per hour. The great live oaks that line this historic street are bending and straining in the rain and wind that's now blowing horizontally. Tens of thousands of people have already lost power. But the thing everybody is watching is how well the levees and flood walls hold. The Army Corps of Engineers spent billions of dollars in the 16 years since Hurricane Katrina to build a state-of-the-art flood protection system that encircles the city. And today it's being mightily tested as these structures hold back the flood-swollen waterways and lakes that surround greater New Orleans. John Burnett, NPR News, New Orleans.
The historic mill town of Lawrence, Massachusetts, for more than a century a magnet to immigrants who embraced their new home and fought valiantly for it, is mourning the loss of one of its own, a Marine who, with 12 others, died in a suicide bombing in Kabul last week. Esteban Bustillos of member station GBH in Boston reports.
25-year-old Marine Sergeant Yoani Rosario was one of 13 service members killed in the attack at Hamid Karzai International Airport in Kabul Thursday. Speaking at a press conference over the weekend, Lawrence Mayor Kendrés Vázquez said the city was particularly saddened that one of those killed was a daughter of the city.
This is a time for us to come together as one community to pay tribute to the heroic actions of Yoani, who in the spirit of a true Laurentian gave her all to give refuge to those in need.
President Joe Biden paid tribute to Rosario and the 12 other service members as their flag-draped coffins were unloaded in a ceremony at Dover Air Force Base. For NPR News, I'm Esteban Bustillos in Boston.
Across the nation, fresh surges of patients fighting COVID-19 are testing the capacity of hospitals. Blake Farmer of member station WPLN reports.
In Alabama, there are now dozens more COVID patients that need to be treated in an ICU than there are beds available. Several states in the under-vaccinated South have surpassed their peaks from the winter surge, or will this week, and staffing continues to be the primary pinch point. Taylor Wiley is an ICU charge nurse in Nashville.
We have beds. We don't have the staff to take them. That's the scary part.
In many ICUs, half the patients have COVID. To take on more, some are asking nurses to double up on critical patients who usually require one-on-one care. More National Guard troops and federal teams are being deployed to help out. For NPR News, I'm Blake Farmer in Nashville.
This is NPR News in Washington. This week brings another step in the return of Broadway. 2 musicals reopen this week. Hadestown and Waitress will both raise their curtains on Thursday. Many other shows will follow on Broadway and on tour. Jeff London reports reopening in the midst of a pandemic is a complicated process.
Just entering a Broadway theater will be a different experience. Audience members must show proof of vaccination and wear a mask. Production protocols are even more stringent. All people, from actors to stagehands to ushers, must be vaccinated, wear masks backstage, and get tested on a regular basis. There's even a new employee on each show, the COVID safety manager, says Mary McCall, executive director of the union Actors Equity.
They're responsible for ensuring that all of the safety protocols are followed.
In an attempt to lure hesitant audiences back, the producers will begin a new advertising campaign on Monday titled This is Broadway. For NPR News, I'm Jeff London in New York.
In Northern California, forest fires are still burning with rising temperatures and growing winds, adding to the challenge of containing the blazes. Extreme heat is expected to last for a few days. The Caldor fire is only 19% contained after burning nearly 245 square miles, an area larger than the city of Chicago. More than 600 structures have been destroyed. At least 18,000 more were under threat. In Southern California, a wildfire erupted yesterday and raced through the Cleveland National Forest. I'm Louise Schiavone, NPR News, Washington.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour. Welcome back for the second hour of Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. And I'm going to tell you that if you have not checked out our website, you must. It's fatemag.com, and it is just wonderful. We have a new edition out, and if you see either Phyllis or myself at a con in the upcoming months, hopefully weeks, then we will have editions for you. And she has uncirculated editions that have never been touched except by her. And if you're looking to fill your collection, then all you have to do is contact her via the link on fatemag.com, and she will get you taken care of. If you have submitted and don't know if your article was published, she knows that too. I had a guest on here submitted like 20 years ago. I was talking to Phyllis about it afterwards, and I was like, do you remember this? She said, oh, yeah, I did publish that. It is da-da-da-da-da. And she sent 2 copies to the author. So how cool is that, right? The woman has an astounding memory, which is good that one of us does. But I kid, but she really is special. And I'm very fortunate to be affiliated with her and Fate Magazine. So tonight is Deborah Jordan. Oh my gosh, I lost my Kauble. I could not remember how to pronounce that, Deb. I'm so sorry for just a second there. She is the subject of Budd Hopkins' book, Intruders Incredible Visitations at Copley Woods. She has her own book, which is just so interesting to me. I am having the best time with it. And it is Extraordinary Contact, Life Beyond Intruders. And it is, like I said, I am not quite finished with it, but I am just reading the daylights out of it and enjoying every minute. So, thank you so much for being here.
Well, I appreciate the invitation.
Well, it is so much fun to talk to you. I love talking to you when we're not talking about anything on the radio.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it too. And I've been a big fan of Fate Magazine for years. I used to have a subscription for years and years and years, and my mother loved it too.
It's a great magazine. When when Phyllis called and said, I'd like you to do this, I was just like, well, yeah. Thank you so much. I would love to do that. And it just came about through what had appeared to be a really icky thing, brought us together, and now this is what we have, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
So it's just really neat. So I am... Oh, okay. I'm trying to find this question that was up here for you. It was Robert's comment where he said that he was interested in the... Well... Yeah, he actually had made a comment that non-humans can render us asleep instantly, which I would probably tend to agree with that because I have had that experience before. But he said that he's always interested in the anomalous light and sound phenomenon that some folks experience. Mm-hmm. So that's why he was curious in the sounds that you were hearing and such. Mm-hmm. Now, I am still game to do whatever you want to do, but I'm sure that there are some listeners like Sherry who are not familiar, perhaps, or as familiar with your history relevant to your interaction with Budd, what brought you to him. Mm-hmm. And, it's pretty intense.
Yeah, so. and talk about interaction with light. Ooh, I sure got one on that night.
You did.
Yeah. That's how I met Budd. I found him. I reached out to him because I had read his book Missing Time previously, or tried to, months before. But I did realize that there was an address in the back of that book where you could write to the guy if you thought you'd had this experience or an experience like this. And I didn't even really think about myself at the time. I thought more of my sister because she had something happen in 1965. But I was living with my parents at the time, single mom, and I was getting ready to go do some sewing with a friend. And I had noticed a strange light in the pump house of the swimming pool back behind the house. And I mentioned it to her before I got ready to leave. Now, keep in mind, I never thought about aliens or anything like that. I was thinking of burglars. And so she didn't seem too concerned with it. So I went ahead and went on about my business. Although I did decide to go down the side of the house to the side driveway and utilize the turnaround behind the pool, just to double check before I left and make sure everything looked secure. And I did notice that the pedestrian door of the garage was open, but I didn't stop. It was 1.5 minutes to the neighbor's house behind us. So I just went on ahead and called Mom when I got there and told her that I saw the door open. And again, she didn't seem concerned, I hung up the phone. And as soon as I hung it up, she called right back and she said, "I need you to come home right now." I'm like, why, is something wrong? I got a little concerned by the tone of her voice.
Right.
And my neighbor's husband says, "Hey, tell her to call the police. That's what they get paid for." Because he could tell I was upset by, something. And so she said, "No, I don't want anybody here but you." So I went ahead and went back, went around looking, and it was out of character for me to do this. I was not a brave 22-year-old kid, at that point in my life. So the fact that I actually even went out there looking around was weird.
Unusual, yeah.
And the fact that I took a gun with me was even weirder because I didn't like them. And I had made my dad unload them when we moved back home because of my little kids. So when I picked it up, Mom says, "That's not loaded." And I said, "Yeah, I know, but whoever I can get close enough to somebody before they realize I'm not going to shoot them, that I can hit them with it, So
they did make a good legend.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm out there looking around, and I checked out the pump house. I was behind the swimming pool at one point, and I did see my dog under my dad's ladder truck. I just left her there. She wouldn't come out. And I went ahead and went into the garage, and I was looking around in the garage thinking that, well, I don't see anybody in here, but there was a set of mattresses leaned up against the wall. So if there was anybody hiding in there, it had to be in there. So I'm like Elmer Fudd, and I'm spewing curse words because I do that. and all of a sudden I feel, oh my God, I feel like, I remember thinking in my head, I got to get out of here. I started feeling hot all over. And so I head for the doorway, and something hit me in like the solar plexus area, I guess. Not really the chest, but like right between your breasts and where the bread basket. And my eyes were closed. I'm sure my eyes were closed, but I could not see this intense white light, and it burned my eyes, and it made my whole body vibrate. And I said it felt like I could almost feel every single individual molecule that made up my body vibrate and like come apart. And I felt like I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die, or I'm dying. I'm dead. This is what it feels like to be dead. And I think time stopped for me at that point, because I don't know how long that I was like that. I don't know, it just felt like time stopped, and I couldn't move, couldn't scream, couldn't do anything. And then I don't know how long it was, but the vibrating slowly stopped. The intensity of the light waned, and I was further out now on the patio through the doorway. I felt somebody pulling down on my shoulder, and I felt like somebody stabbed me in the ear, in the right ear, with in my brain I saw like a long knitting needle that was poker red hot and shoved in my ear. And I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. I couldn't resist. I could see in front of me, but my vision was really wrecked. It was like white splotches on everything. Almost like when you get your picture taken with a flash bulb and you don't blink and you get that blast. It's like that, only worse. But I could see movement in front of me. And there was a soft ball of light about the size of a basketball, maybe 20 or 25 feet out in front of me. And this light goes down really slow, and then it comes back up and stops where it started. And I felt like it was looking at me. I don't know why. And at some point during this interaction, I heard a voice that said it was unfortunate that I had felt pain. Oh. And I noticed the movement in front of me out in the yard. These little kids were coming from everywhere. There were 6 of them. And I remember thinking, why are these little kids in my mom's backyard? And what in the hell is going on? And they all kind of came from different areas and lined up, and they were over by the driveway further out away from me. And then they all kind of started to glide down towards me. And it was at that point when I'm watching them, and I can't see a lot of detail, but I can see all the movement, and I can see them all out there. That's when I saw that thing off to my left that I hadn't noticed it before. And actually that ball of light was not very far away from it. But we called it a craft, but in retrospect, I don't know how 6 even little kids could get in this thing and fly anywhere, because it was just entirely too small. It wasn't much bigger than the pump house. And I would say, imagine one of those aluminum mini barns that you could buy and put together, maybe roughly that size, maybe a little bit smaller. Well, this thing wasn't much bigger than that. And it was shaped like an egg. It was bigger in the center, and then smaller at the top, and then it was egg shaped. And I couldn't even really tell whether it was all the way on the ground or not. I thought I could see a little bit of a waver in it, but it could have been my eyes, well,
after that,
because they were wrecked. But I didn't really feel like it was all the way on the ground at some point. And it had like legs coming off of it. It was coming out the middle and not near the bottom, and they were real skinny. So I would think they couldn't hold weight, so I don't know what those were. But and then these kids started disappearing towards this thing. And I remember thinking, oh my God, my kids. At that point, I remembered my kids were in the house with my mom. And I, again, hear this voice, but I still don't see anybody that says, your children are fine. And then I heard my name being called. But when that was different. When I heard my name being called, it was like somebody snapped their fingers. And I woke up standing on the patio.
Right.
I don't see anything in front of me. I don't remember anything. I don't feel good, but, I'm thinking in my head, I don't want to go back and cut out patterns. I'd rather go swimming. I felt weird.
Yeah, I thought that was weird.
I
thought that was an interesting reaction, but I could understand it too.
Yeah, I didn't understand at the time, but I'm like, I'm not feeling that pattern cutting anymore. And I started towards the patio, walk up these 3 or 4 cement steps to the upper patio. This is a tri-level, so it's kind of a split, weird design. And Mom is standing in the kitchen back door with the door open, and she's like, is everything okay? And I remember saying, yeah, everything's cool. My words were, everything's cool. And then I said, I think I'm going to see if Deanna wants to just come back and go swimming. And she's like, okay, that's fine, or something like that, how Mom did. And so I went back to the house and I said, hey, how about we go swimming instead of cutting patterns? And she's like, great, that's great. So she grabs her daughter and we go back to the house, and we're walking across the yard to the pool, and Deanna's daughter steps on something on her foot, which we thought was maybe a bee or something, maybe you stepped on a bee. We didn't see anything on her foot, and we couldn't see anything. It was pretty dark by then, but so she kept saying my foot feels numb, and then her, the numbness was going up her leg, and Deanna's like, well, get in the pool. That cold pool water will make it feel better. And so we got in the pool, and all 3 of us started getting nauseated, and my head started hurting, and my eyes started hurting, and I noticed my vision, like the lights outside around the swimming pool, where they had like white halos around them. And I thought it was weird because I was thinking to myself, now that's what happens when you put your head in the water and open your eyes in the chlorine a bunch of times, because God knows I did that a million times as a kid, but I hadn't gotten my head in the water, so I couldn't figure out what was going on with my eyes. So at first we were going to go to White Castle and get something to eat, because we thought maybe we'd feel better if we ate, but that got aborted, and they went home and I went to bed. The next morning when I woke up, my eyes were swelled shut, and they hurt so bad and were so oozy that my mom took me to the emergency room. And I don't know why this doctor was in the emergency room. He was an actual eye doctor, but for some reason there was an actual eye doctor in there, and he asked my mother, could she take me across the street to his office? He wasn't working in the emergency room at the time. I don't know how I got connected with him, but
meant to be.
Mom took me across the street to his office. They worked me in, and he looked at my eyes. And the first thing he asked me is, have you looked into the arc of a welder's torch? And I'm like, what? No, why would I do that? And, I'm not remembering the night before at this point. Right. I'm not remembering the blast. That comes the weekend. A few days later, a few days pass. The family comes over to 4th of July weekend for a barbecue and all the crazy things families do on the 4th of July. And kids run outside the back of the house to go to the swimming pool. And my oldest nephew comes back in and he says, hey, Grandma, what's wrong with your backyard? And so all of us adults went out there, and that's when we saw the mark for the first time. And how a few days passed and we didn't see this, I have no idea, me and Mom and Dad. But my mom looks at it, and the first thing she says is, oh, that's where the UFO landed the other night. And I looked at my mom, and at first I thought,
that blew me away.
I'm like, what the hell? I looked at her, and I remember thinking, what the hell? Right. And then I looked back at the mark, and then it was like, bam. Everything started, bam. I saw the big black eyes, and all these memories started trickling back. and by that night I was a hot mess. I didn't sleep for days. I would sit up all night long. I couldn't go to the bathroom, in that bathroom that overlooked the mark in the yard, because I kept feeling like somebody was going to pull me out of the bathroom window. I was fiercely protecting my kids, and basically I think I had a nervous breakdown. But I started remembering about missing time. Something in my head said, hey, go back to the library and get that book and write that guy and send him pictures of this mark. And I'm like, okay, so that's what I did. And that's how I met Budd, and the rest is UFO history, I guess,
It would seem, right?
Yeah.
It certainly caught people's imagination and their hearts. And I think that a lot of people responded to that, because I need to go ahead and say that y'all are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama, and we're so glad you are. And, I think that it caught people unawares, because I have had, just because of what I do, I have had people reach out to me to share experiences. And yours is an extreme, but not an uncommon experience from what I've heard from other people. But yours is just like other people's experience on, mega steroids.
And what people don't realize is that there were, we didn't know it at the time, but there were other witnesses to that night.
Really?
And yes, and there was
the neighbors.
The mark, and the mark in the yard lasted for 2 years, and snow melted off of it that first year.
Really?
And yes, it was weird. And even 20 some years later, after Intruders had been out for a long, long time, Budd got a letter from a gal who lived the street right behind my parents. And she had read Intruders and put 2 and 2 together. And now she could, in the letter, she couldn't specifically say it was the exact date, but she said around that time, my boys liked to spend the night out in the garage with their friends when their friends would come and spend the night, and they'd all sleep in the garage. And the opening of the garage faced the back of my mom and dad's house, when there was a small wooded area that separated the two properties. This is bigger properties, kind of farther apart. And she said one night these boys came screaming into the house, terrified, and swore up and down that there were dozens of basketball-sized balls of light floating through the woods, and that they thought that some of them were going to come and get them, and they freaked out. And she said they would never sleep in that garage again. And that's what they did all the time, but it scared them so badly. And she says, when I read in Intruders about the woman seeing the basketball-sized ball of light floating around, and then, my mother also said that like a week after, she remembered why she'd called me in, and she had seen a basketball-sized ball of white light around the bird feeder in front of the kitchen window. And that's what triggered her to call me to tell me to come home. And so, I mean, this person came out, 20 some years later, lived the street behind us. And then neighbors, other neighbors that Budd talked to, they didn't have, we had 2 neighbors, one on the north side and one across the road, who witnessed that night. But then other neighbors said they didn't remember anything from that night, but they had remembered other strange things over our house, and they didn't want to say anything to us. We didn't talk to neighbors, like a UFO over the house one night, but they didn't say anything to anybody because they didn't want people to think they were crazy. So,
oh my goodness.
So yeah, so people don't realize how much actual, it wasn't just me. And you know what I mean? It was me and my mom, and then it was 2 of the neighbors, and then another neighbor behind us, and then the 2 people that I was dealing with at my friend's house, her and her husband, and then her daughter. I mean, Budd interviewed them, afterwards, and they even appeared to have been kind of disconnected in a way. They weren't consciously aware of how much time had actually lapsed between the time I went home to look through, look around for Mom when she called, and the time that I returned for us to go swimming. They didn't realize how much time had passed. And Deanna was kind of upset, and she was like, I mean, if it had been that long, if I'd have realized it had been that long, I would have been worried and, calling and everything, but they didn't. It didn't dawn on them. It was almost like something changed in their paradigm or their world, in their mind too, in their reality. It was just weird. The whole thing was just weird.
Well, you've had other experiences.
Yeah.
And when you had those, when you had missing time and such, has it always been the case that the people that are affiliated with you at that point don't notice? Haven't noticed?
I don't know about that in particular in anything other than this one, but I do know that when I had another experience right before I got married, when I was still 17, with 2 other girls. And it's the strange thing about that was the girl who was driving at the time, years later when I told Budd about what happened, and we actually found her and went back and she agreed to talk to him about it, the first thing out of her mouth was, okay, because I said he would like to talk to you about that night we saw the light when we were out stalking Kenny. That's what I told her. We were out looking for a boyfriend to see if he was cheating on her. And she goes, okay, you mean the light on the ground or the light in the sky, the light in the sky or the light on the ground? And I said, what? Wait a minute. Wow. I didn't even remember the light on the ground. She remembered more than I did, And then when Budd interviewed her, he said, well, would you like to undergo some hypnotic regression and see if you can remember more? She's like, no, thanks. Nope, I'm good. No, thanks. That's okay. If you don't need me to, I'm not. No. And he's like, oh, I don't need you to. It's up to you. So,
a method of closure was offered. So that was pretty nice.
And it was weird that, it was not too long after all that weirdness happened. And then, her and I just kind of drifted apart a little bit. We just stopped hanging out so much together. I don't know if something was going on subconsciously, you know what I mean, or what. Wow. I know that the other girl that was with us was just freaking terrified and screamed and cried the whole time. And I don't even remember her name or whatever happened to her. I never saw her again.
That's odd. I mean, for her to have such an extreme reaction and just fade away.
Yeah, because when I first saw the light, I said, oh, look at the UFO in the sky. And I kind of giggled. And Dolores kind of giggled. And the girl in the back seat said, that's not funny. Don't say that. And she got mad. And then as things progressed, she jumped down. She was laying on the floorboard behind in the back seat crying on our way home afterwards. Oh, so I don't even know I don't even know what happened to her. I've always felt bad, but I never saw her again. She wasn't my friend to begin with. She was Dolores's friend. So that was the first time I met her. That's probably why she
made an impression, did you?
Yeah, I don't want to be around that girl anymore.
Well, that's, to me, that would seem like a sane person's reaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my first time that I saw one, I've never told anybody this except for the people that were there, but my grandpa was a railroad engineer, and I was a kid. I was probably 9, and he was coming home for Christmas, but it was Christmas Eve, and he was late getting in, and we had to go to the rail yard to pick him up. So my dad and my uncle drove, and I got to go because, I was the only child. Actually, I must have been 7 because I was still an only child. But, and only grandchild. I was so rotten. But we're driving down the road, and I looked out the window, and because I'm trying to stay awake because it is late, and I saw lights, like separate lights. Mm-hmm. And this was 1968, maybe. And my uncle and my dad said, "Oh, well, that's Santa." I was like, "That is not Santa. Yeah, Santa's got a red light in front of him. This isn't Santa." But, yeah, they argued with me about it. And finally, my dad saw it. And he was like, "Oh." And he knew airplanes and stuff. He was a Special Forces Green Beret, jumped out of perfectly good flying machines. I mean, just crazy man. And he didn't know what it was either. And do you know that neither one of them would ever talk to me about that anytime afterward?
Huh.
So, so I've seen them, I guess, now all my life. But it's so unusual to find somebody who's never seen one and doesn't really know what to make of it, that doesn't wig out like the other girl did. Maybe not to that extreme.
Yeah, because I don't recall my friend Dolores wigging out that way at all, And at the end of it, when we're driving back and we realize that, oh my God, we got to hurry up and get home because her mom and dad are going to be getting up to the alarm pretty soon, and we got to sneak in and get in bed before they get up.
Remember those days?
She looked at me and she goes, "Time flies when you're having fun, right?" Or something, and you could tell she was being sarcastic, and I'm like, "Yeah, right." So I thought, that whole thing was just weird. But then, it's me, so that's
there you
to be
go.
Expected, I guess.
Weird is fun. But Robert says that out of the ordinary reactions are indicative of subtle control by non-human intelligence. And Robert also says everyone handles the unknown differently. That's very true.
Oh yeah,
that is very true.
Yeah.
But Sherry would like to know if you ever experienced strange dreams now, and do you worry about things happening to you that might be worse than those past experiences?
Yeah.
Do you ever have fear still?
No, not so much. I don't know. I've just, in my mind, I guess I've told myself, okay, look, you've lived 62 years and you're still here, still alive. They haven't killed you yet. If they wanted to kill you and eat you, that would have happened a long, long time ago, and I'm still here. So, and like I said, I feel sometimes that, somebody's got an eye on me. I almost feel protected in some ways. Yes. I feel like I'm a cat with 9 lives and I've blown 3 or 4 of them already, but I'm still here. So, so no, I'm not afraid that if I have any more experiences that it's going to be worse than what I think that I'm past that. Thank goodness. But, I do have strange dreams occasionally. I had this weird dream, not too terribly long ago. And it was weird because it coincided with apparently some kind of weird dream my son was having in the other room. And, this is when he lived here with us. He was staying in the guest room. I was sitting in the kitchen having a cup of coffee and I looked up. This is the dream. I looked up. Just a normal day, and Casey's door was shut, and it was over in the corner where his bedroom door is, but there was a ghost hanging up in the corner. And literally, it was like a dude with a sheet over him with 2 eye holes cut out. And I looked up at it, and it startled me at first. But then as I looked down, I saw a pair of Chuck Taylors hanging out the bottom, and I busted out laughing. And I said, "Dude, really?" Like that in my dream. It shocked me to see that. But then I got over the shock quickly and I wasn't scared at all. And I was like, "Are you kidding me? You're wearing Chuck Taylors and you're hanging from my ceiling. What in the hell? You got a sheet on you." And and then I woke up. I thought I don't what the purpose of that whole dream was. And it was just, maybe if it was just to see how I was going to react or, so where my head was at the time or something. It was comical to me. I was laughing.
I would have laughed at that too because, that's just poor planning on the part of that spirit. Unless
it was, a test which I almost felt like it was some kind of test. I was being tested, But then my son, morning comes and I'm actually awake and I'm actually sitting there drinking coffee, and my son gets up and he comes out and he goes, "Oh my God, Mom, I had the weirdest dream last night." And I'm like, "What?" And I'm thinking, don't tell me you saw ghosts with Chuck Taylors on. He said, "No." He said there was somebody looking in my window. And I go, "What do you mean someone was looking in your window?" He goes, "I swear to God, I was awake. It wasn't a dream. Someone wasn't looking in my window." And I said, "Are you sure?" We went in the bedroom and looked, and he goes, "His head was like way up here." And I'm like, "Well, dude, that would mean he'd have to be like 8 feet tall." And he goes, "I don't care. I'm telling you, I seen it." And I'm like, "What did you do?" And he goes, "I pulled the covers over my head." I started laughing at him.
First method of defense.
39-year-old grown man, and he pulls the covers over his head, and then eventually he gets the nerve to peek out, and then nobody's there,
Right.
And I'm like, okay, so I thought that was odd that he had that dream while I was dreaming that somebody who would be maybe 8 feet up in my living room hanging. You know what I mean? The coincidence did not escape me, and I thought, what was that all about?
That was radical.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, that was. So, but yeah, so I still do stuff like that.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we are going to be right back. So y'all come back with us, and if you've got more questions, pop them in chat, because this is going to be our final segment coming up. See you on the flip side.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back for the final segment of Fate Mag Radio here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. I am so glad you're here because I have had a ball tonight, and I still am. My guest is just fantastic. We have been going all over the place with her experiences. She is Debra Jordan-Kauble, and she is the subject of Intruders, Incredible Visitations at Copley Woods by Budd Hopkins. And she has also written her own books, and her latest is basically a rewrite of her original her original book, Extraordinary Contact, Life Beyond Intruders. So, we have a couple of questions that I'd like to get to, and this is something that I think is interesting, and this is just a statement by Robert, who says that some UFOs actually have the letters UFO displayed prominently on them. He would know. And Sherry says, do you think that any of this has to do with the land that your house was on? Maybe some elemental things going on as well?
You know, that's a good question that's been asked a lot in the past. And, you know, in the beginning, we kind of wondered, because it seemed like it got more intense as I got older and we got to that house there. But as it turns out, I don't think so, because as we all grew up and moved away, the stuff started happening in our own homes as well. And after my mom and dad passed away and we had to sell the house, I found out later that the person that had bought the house was actually friends with somebody that I had gone to school with and who knew about us in the book. And she had said something to the gal who bought the house, and the gal was fascinated by it all. But when we asked her, had anything strange happened in the house since they'd lived there, and they'd lived there for many years, and she said, nope, not a thing. It's quiet as a church mouse. We never have anything go on here. So I think it was us that was haunted and not the land or us that, you know.
Well, do you ever, Robert wants to know, do you have any thoughts as to why you?
I've thought that all my life. I've tried to figure that out, and I still don't know. Was it something different about me and my family before I was born? Something that was already different inside of me that attracted it all? Or did something happen to me early in life that facilitated all this, then changed something in me? You know, I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg. I don't know. A lot of people think this kind of stuff is generational. And my mother did have a strange thing happen to her when she was a kid. My mother was adopted out of the orphanage in Louisville at the age of 2 by a master sergeant in the Army, and she was taken to China, where they lived for a couple of years, and then Rhode Island, and then back to Kentucky. But when she was in Kentucky, she had a memory of being chased through the woods by a little blonde-haired boy. Really? Not unlike, and I didn't even know about it. She told Budd about this when we were actually talking about my little blonde-haired boy encounter, and I didn't even know up till that point. So, you know, could be a generational thing, but I don't think anybody knows for sure, and I sure don't. I just have guesses.
Well, I know that is a dominating thought process in the field, is that these are generational experiences. And I know that paranormal gifts often are. Like, I didn't know until my mother was living in a nursing home and I took her out to dinner one afternoon that she was a medium. It had never come up. And she was asking, you know, well, what are your radio shows about? And yada, yada, yada. And I said, well, one is Paranormal Experienced and the other is Fate Magazine Radio. And she was like, paranormal. She said, are you gifted? And I said, some people think so. And she was like, well, it's annoying. And I said,
my dad always swore he could smell death.
Yeah. Not a gift I would like to have. Mm-mm. But my mom said that ever since she was little, she said, you know, it's just terrible because when she was telling me how annoying it was, she said they just line up by your bed and they want to tell their stories. And when I find this was when she was a child that she was describing to me, she said, so when I just had enough and wanted to go to sleep, I told them they would have to go and talk to my mother. So apparently my grandma did that too. I had no idea. I knew that my grandma was New Age before there was one, but you know, that really struck me as unexpected. And my mom has some form of extreme dementia. They're treating it as Alzheimer's, although she did not have genetic markers for that. But it's very odd that, and I share her opinion, sometimes it's very annoying, you know. So I thought that was odd that was her take on it too.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not ask you. I did not ask you the question that we had talked about. And I think I would like to do that. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Because in the books, you describe your missing fetus pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
And I had met someone recently before we met who had described what she went through. Although she didn't have a missing fetus, she knew very well what was going on with that, and was actually allowed, because she was in a relationship with the alien that she encountered, that she was allowed to visit with her son. And that set me to thinking, because I had not known very many people to ask about that. And when we met and we were talking, I was very presumptive and asked if you had been able to see your child. And you described that. And, I just felt like I was led to ask you that question. I don't know why. Can you talk a little about that? We've got about 10 minutes left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll try. I'll try to keep it as short as I can. When I found out I was pregnant, I was engaged to my future husband, who ended up being the father of my two sons too. And I assumed that that's how I got pregnant. And so the only problem was I wasn't 18 yet and I wasn't married. So I had to make real good and sure I knew I was pregnant before I told my dad. So my mom took me to get a pregnancy test. We went to the doctor and he gave me a pregnancy test and a pelvic exam. And he thought I felt like I was farther along than I thought I was, because I thought I got pregnant in December. And later on, I started to realize that, remember I told you about the two girls and me stalking her boyfriend that night in November in the fall?
Yes.
That happened right before I got pregnant in December. And then I had other strange memories with that encounter that included some kind of a medical exam. And I started connecting the two. Anyway, fast forward to, I think it's like maybe the first week of March or something. I'm having babysitting with my sister's kids. And I fell asleep on the couch, but I woke up in my niece's bed. And I woke up immediately thinking that there was something wrong with my baby. Something just didn't feel right. And I felt real panicky and strange. So I went to the bathroom and checked right away and everything was normal, but I couldn't shake that feeling. So my girlfriend, the same girl that was driving the car that night back in the fall, she says to me, because I'm telling her something is not right. I don't feel right. Something's wrong. And she said, well, come with me to Planned Parenthood. She was going there to get birth control pills. She said, you can get a free pregnancy test there. They won't tell anybody. Don't tell them that you've already been to the doctor. Just get it done. It'll be pregnant and you'll test positive and then you'll shut up. Basically, she's trying to calm me down. So I went with her, had a pregnancy test. And I will never forget when the woman came out to me and got me and then said, your test was negative. If you don't have your period in another week, you need to contact your physician, and I just shut down. And I remember being in Dolores's car crying and banging my fists, and she's freaking out because she don't know what to do with me at that point. So I go back home. I'm trying to hide all this from my mom, this emotion. I tell my mom, I think there's something wrong with the baby. I need to go to the doctor. So she takes me to the doctor and goes with me. I get another pregnancy test and I have another pelvic exam. And then the doctor asks us to come to his office and talk to us. And when I get in there with my mom and he says, you are not pregnant. And my mom says, well, what happened? And I remember my mom saying, does she need a D&C? That's what my mom asked. And he said, no, she's fine. He goes, this is what got me. He said, we see this sometimes. He said, it's not that big a deal. It happens. He said, you're young. You're going to have plenty of other kids. If I were you, I would just go home and forget about it and go on with your life, and everything will be fine. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm never forgetting this.
No doubt.
Now, of course, and you got to remember, this was probably 44 years ago now. So we went home and nothing was ever said about it again. We never spoke about it. I mean, Mom, we never mentioned it. Charlie and I went ahead and got married. We were going to get married in June. We moved it to April because I was pregnant. And we went ahead and got married in April. And then, I ended up having 2 kids. And then June 30, 83 happened. The night happened. And Budd came and the investigation started. And he had come to town. I think it was like in the fall of 83. He'd come to town and he was going to go talk to somebody else that had written to him that lived in Indiana. So I drove him to where they were and he met with them. And then we came back. We pulled into the driveway of Mom's house and we sat there a minute. And I had been thinking about this pregnancy and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I couldn't understand why I was thinking about this pregnancy after all this time. And, we never talked about it with my family, my mom or me or anybody. And so I just looked overhead at him and I blurted it out. I lost a baby. And I could see the look on his face. And the minute I saw the look on his face, I thought, oh my God, why did I do that? I am such an idiot, And he said, well, he said, oh, I'm so sorry. And I could tell he didn't know what to say to me. And I could tell he was thinking, what does this have to do with anything? And I finally said to him, I don't know why. I just felt compelled to tell you that. I have no idea. And I feel stupid and I apologize. And he goes, oh no, don't feel bad. But I said, I can't stop thinking about it. And I said, I can't stop thinking about her. And he goes, how did you know it was a girl? And I said, I don't know. I don't know. So, anyway, eventually, it clicked with him, and I guess he had gotten other letters from women who'd had similar things happen to them. And I had started to remember. I remembered partially little bits and pieces spontaneously, and then we did a regression session, and I remembered what is now called the presentation, which was would have been several years after the actual birth or whatever, when the baby was missing. And I had remembered being in a room on a table in a bright white room, and there were a bunch of these gray things in there. And I called them gray guys. But then 2 of them came in to the room. And I thought they felt like females. Everybody looked the same to me, but for some reason I thought they were female. I don't know why. And in between the 2 of them was this little girl, this child, little bitty. She was smaller than them. And as soon as I saw her, I thought, oh, that's mine. I immediately I felt that maternal thing. And I thought, oh, and she was just to me so gorgeous and beautiful. And I thought, oh my God. And I wanted to run up and in my mind, I was thinking I wanted to run up and hug her. And as soon as I thought that thought is when she darted behind one of them, like she was terrified of me and she couldn't even hardly look at me. And I thought, oh my God, I felt horrible because it was clear that she was scared of me, maybe of not just afraid of me and what I looked like because she's used to these guys, not me. But maybe she heard what I was thinking, that I was going to grab her and hug her, I don't know, but I know it hurt. My heart broke when she acted like she was scared of me. And then I realized I can't, I got to calm down. And then the one gray guy that I seemed to be familiar with, that seemed like I'd seen him before during other experiences. I asked him, can I take her home? Can I take her with me? And he said, no, you can't. You couldn't feed her. She wouldn't survive. And I was upset, and he couldn't understand why I was upset, because he was like trying to tell me, this is a good thing. You should be proud of this, that you did this is a good thing. And I don't get it, you know? He's not saying to me in words. It's some kind of exchange going on with us, but he's trying to explain to me that he's got to take care of her, you know, and then he says to me, it's time, you got to leave because you can't stay here any longer. You're going to get sick. So I go to this, he walks me over to this area, and he takes both of my hands in his little squishy, cold, it feels like a frog skin, hands, cold and weird like.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden I felt every emotion that a human being can feel all at the same time. And I remember thinking, what's wrong with me? It was like I got an emotion bomb thrown at me. Right. And then I started to realize that it was coming from him, not me. And it was like he was trying to do something there, you know, to have some kind of a moment with me, but he wasn't doing a very good job of it. And then the next thing I remember, I wake up in the backyard at my mom's house. I'm laying in the grass in the backyard, and then see this thing above me that goes away. Yeah. And I go in the back door, and the door's locked. I can't get in. So I'm banging on the door. Hey, Mom, let me in. You know, somebody let me in. And Mom opened the door and let me in, and I went in the house. But then my mom later, she said she remembered hearing me call her name, but she doesn't remember getting up or opening the door for me or anything like that. But she did remember hearing me call for her. She didn't know where I was calling from.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that was the first time I think I actually saw the girl, the child. And like I said, part of it I remembered spontaneously, part of it was remembered under regression, and you know, most of it I still don't remember, and I probably never will.
Well, maybe that's not a bad thing.
No, I always kind of held, you know, I've always said I got pregnant by Charles, and I don't know what happened after that, but, you know, I've always called it dreams because that's how I live with it. That's how I have to live with it because I had a life and I had kids to raise, and I couldn't let myself go crazy, you know, and I felt like I would, if I dwelled on something I couldn't control, I would just drive myself mad, and I didn't want to do that. I couldn't do that. So, but there's always been a little part of me in my heart that even now, okay, this girl would be 44 years old, something like that, right? In her 40s. I don't do it as much now as I did when I was younger, but if I was in a big crowd of strangers, you know, and I saw a small blonde woman with, you know, really blonde hair and blue eyes, I would look at him and wonder, is that her? You know,
well, you had an opportunity to do just that, didn't you?
Well, years later, I lived in the apartments, and I was sitting at the kitchen table and just drinking coffee, and I looked up, and I had a security or privacy fence around the back of the patio, and I saw a kid standing there looking at me through the slats. I could see her clothes, I could see her shoes at the bottom, I could see her, she had white hair, really blonde hair, like we called them towheads, and big blue eyes. And I thought, what in the hell is that kid wearing all black for in the middle of summer? And then something in me popped, and I thought, oh my God. And I thought, is that her? And I got up, and when I got up and headed to the patio door, she took off running. And by the time I got outside and opened the gate and could look up and down the back alleyway, there was no one there. And I ran down to the edge and tried to see if I could see, and this kid just disappeared out of thin air. And so I always wondered if that was her, you know, again.
If she wanted to see you too.
Yeah. I always feel like if it is indeed what I thought it was, then there's a human part of her. And I think humans are always attracted to their mothers, even kids that are adopted. They seek their birth moms, you know? And I always kind of held on to that.
Well, I think you're right too, because you may see her again.
I might.
You never know. Stranger things have happened.
Tell me about it.
Right? Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you for sharing everything, because
you're welcome.
I have enjoyed talking with you. I've enjoyed listening to you. I know our listeners have. We've had some really great questions, and I just appreciate your time. I also appreciate your friendship.
Well, I thank you. All of that means a lot to me, and I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to talk about things and that people are, you know, nice to me. I appreciate that a lot.
Well, you know, I have to be nice to you. You bend spoons better than I do. I still think that's funny that out of all the things, that's the one that slays my husband. And it's all thanks to you.
Uh-huh.
So, well, we are going to have to end this. As most of y'all know, next weekend is Labor Day weekend, and we do not do shows on holiday weeks, or certainly not on holidays. So, I will be gallivanting somewhere, listening to other shows or doing something fun next Sunday, and I will probably be cleaning something, actually. So y'all just enjoy your holiday. Thank you so much for your support all the time. And, you know, just remember that if you're not liking the world that you're seeing, we do have the power to change that. You know, manifest. We can manifest attitudes, and we can manifest environments, we can alter other people's reactions to things simply by being ourselves. You know, if you're wearing a mask to protect yourself, that's perfect. Do what you need to do for you. But don't ever forget that the eyes are where your soul lives and where your joy lives. And if you're smiling, people are going to see that in your eyes. Just be a friend that you'd like to have, a mom you'd like to have, a b-boy you'd like to have. I mean, just do you. Be the best you. And thank you so much for your support. Every one of us here at the network just love our listeners and appreciate our chats. We just enjoy you. We do it all for you. But I will see you in 2 weeks. Same cat time, same cat channel. Have a great week and a great holiday. Good night.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.